Right? And I'm not playing no games. Yeah.
Hey, I'm Pops, and I want to do another review with you. Drishyam. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. It's an Indian cinema film, another great film. This one's a little older. It's a 2015 film. It was highly recommended to me. It is sort of a thriller suspense drama surrounding around an accidental murder and police corruption and intrigue and things like that. So, interesting film. I want to talk about that. I want to also really kind of break down near the end, and I do apologize if I misspeak, if I talk about pronounce names that are wrong, those kinds of things. But I also want to talk about why this one may not connect as well with American audiences in particular. I don't want to speak to everywhere, but I can speak to American audiences and why we may have a more difficult time connecting to this film and why that would be. So let me get into this and just say, first off, that I don't have any major issues with this film. I liked it. I can recommend it. It's a fine watch. I found it easily with subtitles. I think it was Amazon Prime. It could have been Netflix. Either way, those appear to be the two big ones for us where you can get English subtitles. Ajay Devgn, I think I'm saying his name properly, stars as Vijay. He's the protagonist of this film. He's basically the whole film. It's basically his film. It centers around him and his family, and it's set in an Indian town mostly, where he is a successful businessman. He is a relatively uneducated, self-made man running some sort of cable electronic company. The early part of the film really sets up his world, what his world is. He goes to a cafe to eat. He has sort of a great relationship with people in the community. He loves movies. He's addicted to movies. He's literally not even answering his phone. He's not coming home on time because he's watching all these movies in his office and that kind of thing. So it frames a little bit of who he is as a person. And then you get sort of like the family unit where, they're with the wife and the two daughters, a teen daughter, and then a young elementary school little girl. And, they want to go shopping. They want to go to the big city, which I believe is pronounced Panaji. And they go shopping. They go to a movie, have ice cream and all. He's trying to please them. He's watching them bond to be cute. The wife falls in heels in some store. The teen asks for like some money to go to a nature camp. And there's some music and some fun times and all that. And there's like little subplots that are there, laid there for you about like protect this quarry, this environmental thing about protecting this quarry, right? And then he's gonna have this foundational work done at the police station and in this little storage thing that he has, things like that. And you have the first round of conflicts centers around this police officer. He's bad cop. He's just a jerk cop. He's complete jerk. He basically is shaking down this cafe owner, right? The Uncle Martin. And VJ basically calls him a bloodsucker. Just says he's an awful person, right? Just an awful person. Calls him fat. They're definitely at odds with one another. And later he gets into another thing with him too, over again. And his name is Giatonde, I think is how you would say his name. It's like, I'll have my day, right? And he's like, everyone fears the cops. Thought they were here to serve us, right? So you have a lot of characters that are being developed, at least a little bit. There's an employee named Jose who's like, he's played for some comedy, being lazy, not doing different things, and how VJ treats him. You have different elements like that, like a Nandini, the wife. I may be saying her name right. She wants to go back to Panaji again because there's going to be like a religious sermon there. She wants to do that. Of course, you have Anju going to the nature camp. So you have this whole family thing that's happening. You have this cute, sweet scene where VJ and his wife have cleaned themselves up. They've freshened themselves up. They got their perfume on, right before they kiss. Camera cuts away, right? So it's like a great way to talk about sexy time and the sweetness of their relationship without it being graphic and gross and stuff that Hollywood can't get away from. They wouldn't know what a good relationship is, even when they have it in their own communities. So anyway, this all goes along, and then the story gets dark and changes because there's a kid named Sam, and he was photographing the girls at their camp, and he got pictures of Anju while she was in the shower. So she's undressed. Threatens to ruin their reputation. And I guess this is culturally a way bigger thing there than it is for us, right? Because there's weird lines like they'll know how she bathes. I'm like, I don't know what that means. So mom finds out and they confront Sam in this little room, like this almost like a basement. It's not a basement, but it's like this little block room, not much in there. And Anju, they're kind of struggling. Sam's like telling the wife, well, if you'll basically he's implying sex, right? And Anju tries to grab this pipe and knock the cell phone out of his hand, destroying the evidence, destroying the video, and misses and hits him right in the side of the head, knocks him down and kills him. And they bury him in this compost hole that they had been digging a little earlier in the film. So it's raining and VJ comes home and there's crisis, right? Now, I have to admit, this was very hard. This is the first phase of Americans not getting this cultural thing about the photos, because the woman here, the girl here, would be the victim. The boy is a creepy, perverted, peeping Tom. So here, it would reflect more on him than her. In fact, he could be charged with certain crimes. Whereas there, the cultural shame is so much of a bigger issue. So for us, this is going to be a little hard for us to connect to, right? So they're in the middle of all this, and then you have sort of like the beginning of the cover-up scheme, because basically they cannot go to the police. If they go to the police, it would also unearth the video. That's at least the early pretext to this. There's stuff like they find the car key. They realize Sam had a car. They got to figure out where to hide the car. They have this phone, so they got to figure out, like this thing. So VJ basically orchestrates this massive scheme about covering their tracks and plans everything out with the family. Okay. So then there's Sam's family. Sam's family, I don't even know I don't even care to know their names. So Sam's dad is Sam's dad, and then the mom is this police boss lady. She's a higher up at like an IG office. She's a high police official. And the first shot that we have of her is she's just cruel and mean, talking about beating people, bringing in their families, and maim their families. It's like she's just showcased and introduced as just being completely crazy, right? And her and the dad have issues over Sam anyway. He's like got a laptop and he's doing this. Who knows what this kid is doing, right? I will say all of that, there's a lot of wasted time there. There's a lot of that could have been shortened or combined in different ways to not be so long and cumbersome. And she begins like the tracking on the phone, figure out where he is and that kind of thing. And they find out the phone had been shut off. And then they he had dumped the car. So there's money at an ATM machine, all these different things that are going on, right? Now, VJ, when he moves his car, the jerk D-bag officer, the Giatande guy, claims he sees him. Well, he does see him. But that's part of the linchpin to the whole thing, is that VJ is guilty because of this, him seeing this. Right? Now, what's interesting is VJ is going over the story. He is treating this as a fight for his family. Like, if we don't do this right, we're going to prison. And this becomes a very strange moral gray area for us. Like, I don't understand. Like, I think it would have been easier to be like, no, he came here. He claimed he was doing this to blackmail my daughter for sex. And my wife walked in. There was a fight. And my daughter was defending my wife and hit him. But anyway, long story short, that's not the story. And it's hard for us to relate. And then the story is more about VJ and navigating witnesses and police investigation and them trying to figure all this out. And he's done such a great job. Like, Anju is brought to like the principal's office, and there's like cuts to like VJ telling her, like, you just can't have fear. You'll be fine. Just say these things. This is what we do. And they basically had gone back on their family vacation. It cuts to the first sequence, shows how happy they are. And this one, like, they're sitting around, they're sad, they're melancholy. When they come back, they don't go back to school right away. It's raining all the time. So it's a great juxtaposition of the two situations. And this Sam's mom, this nasty police officer lady, she's a complete arrogant witch. She thinks because VJ's dumb that this will be an easy thing, it's an easy arrest, whatever. And reality is they can't get anything, right? He's coached them up. They don't really have to lie. They just have to talk about the second trip. And they interrogate the kids. They do all this different things. So it's very quick because the police are really kind of scumbags in the way they're presented and all this. We actually start cheering for the family to get away with murder. We're actually like the writer does such a good enough job that VJ and the family are still the protagonists, even though they're the ones that committed the crime and are trying to get away with it. I know it sounds crazy, but it's all handled in such a manner and that the police are presented in such a horrible way. The villagers like rally behind VJ more than once because he has a good reputation. No one wants to believe that he would be this malicious person that did this thing. There's definitely no like innocent until proven guilty thing. This is like really hard because the police are like coming down hard on where they were and what they ate. They interrogate the little kid, like the little girl. So she's like elementary school, and they're like, "What did you eat? Your mom said you ate this." Like it was like really over the top, and I was like, I don't know all of this worked. And then like Giatonde is like, no, they're cooking up a lie. We want a lie detector test, and that was like a big no. Oh, we can't do that. And I'm like, what are you talking about? So anyway, they're doing all these witnesses. They're trying to double check everything, and everything is checking out. VJ is looking like he's got it all figured out, but he also knows it's not over. There's something there. He's very humble. There's a phrase we have about in America about a dog with a bone. Like you know, when a dog has a bone, they won't give it up. That's how these police officer was, especially the crazy lady, the police officer lady, which she's like, I know he's lying and I can feel it. And I'm like, who cares what you can feel if you can't prove anything? Anyway, it doesn't matter because the police can quote tell that people are lying. Anyway, so we end up with this scheme, and you have this music where she starts to figure out that VJ has manipulated these witnesses. Like he's visited them again. So he's orchestrated these reasons to interact with them to say, oh yeah, you know, oh yeah, I remember so-and-so. Yeah, we saw him on our way to that trip when we did that sermon. And oh, it was like the second or the third. What day was it? Whatever it was. He's orchestrated all of this stuff to reinforce those memories where it wasn't just some fleeting thing. It was something that's very cemented to these witnesses. And then once they see this ATM footage where they see him on this camera, it's like it all seems like it's all going to fall apart. But then no, she sees through it. She feels it. Oh, you hate her so much. She's so the antagonist, and yet she's the victim in this because it's her kid. It's such a crazy how it flips everything around. Anyway, so there's all sorts of weird ways that they basically have us cheering for them to get away with the crime and the murder and the cover up. It was not really a murder. It was more like an accidental death, but it would be viewed as a murder. And we're rooting for VJ. Boss lady is completely nuts. She's going through all of this again, which is a complete waste of time in the film. And it's like, well, what if he did this? What if he did that? Anyway, so reality is this. They bring them all in, and she's like big, meanie face, nasty. Like, I couldn't stand any of this part at times because of the way the music was used. The music that they used was very much like music here that we have for soap operas and cheesy content on TV. So it was hard to take some of that stuff real serious because you felt like it was laughable, because also the police's reaction is so over the top. Like when Giatonde is allowed to just start slapping VJ, which is funny because like, we'll see how much of this you can take, but they're slaps. They're not actual punches. It just keeps going and keeps going and keeps going. The female police officer comes in and beats the wife and Anju, and they start interrogating the little girl. It's just very over the top. It just never ends. Anyway, long story short, there's this interruption in it where they bring in Alex, and I'm like, I don't even know who the hell is Alex. I don't know. Well, Alex is Sam's friend. He was in on it. He tells him the story about the video and filming her in the shower. So now police boss thinks that she's got it all. She's got it all figured out. And she goes in there, oh, we know about the video. And they're kind of like, dun, dun, dun. But no, nobody cracks. So she sends everybody out. They try to torment this little girl, right? Starts smacking the little girl. And Giatande, almost like, I'm going to kill them all. I'm going to kill your parents. Starts to almost, he hits her, but then he starts to step on her or whatever. And then finally they're like, no, we're not doing that. So they think that they have the family now. They've got it all figured out, right? The video, they think they have his scheme. They think they've got it all figured out. And Giatande could be mistaken. And that's when he snapped, by the way. And I'm like, no. All right, so they're going to go back. And all the time, I got to be honest, there were several times in the movie, I'm like, well, the dead body's in the yard. Like, did we? Well, that's what happens next. The police go there. They start digging up the compost pile. The little girl had caved. And the wife feels guilty because, this is what's happened. And everyone's freaking out. And Vijay's like, no one's going to prison. We got this, right? And like I said, you're dealing with this moral struggle of VJ and his family getting away with this. And you're like, but the police are such awful humans. I don't want them to get anything. Even this family that's lost their kid, because the kid was a complete jerk. Like, he got himself in the middle of a mess. Anyway, so long story short, they dig up the compost and it's a dog's body, not a human. So Sam is not in that hole, and we don't know. And we sort of don't know what happens. Like, it's just boom, that's done. And what happens is, as VJ's family leaves, the mob is there, the villagers are there, the media is there, and they also, they tortured me, they beat my kid, and they did all this stuff, and then now it becomes in the press, and it ruins her career, and it kind of becomes a mess. So then we cut to a scene near the end of the movie where they're on the edge of this cliff. So boss lady and Sam dad want to talk to him, basically listen, we're just parents now. She's not a police officer. I'm not a businessman. Just tell us what happened. Tell us where the kid is, whatever. Anyway, you don't think he's going to. And then finally he does this. I'm sorry. This is what happened. He put us in this situation. This is what we did. So keep my family together. It's not really what I wanted to do. It's out of character for me. And I feel like it was okay. But I have to be honest. There's so many scenes because it's almost like he's on the edge of this cliff. There's so many shots where I feel like she's just going to snap and become crazy boss lady and just push him over the cliff. That's what I was waiting on. It did not happen, fortunately. That might have been a better ending in some ways. But long story short, there's still no answer. Where did this go? So later, it's intercut with that opening scene. We go right back to the beginning of the movie where he's in the police station and he's going to walk out. Right, and that police officer is talking smack, we're going to get you, man. And he's like, I thought the police were here to protect us. Anyway, but then as he's walking out, you cut and you realize there's that scene early in the movie where they're talking about all this construction work, and they were laying the foundation of the police station. You realize he buried Sam in the middle of the night. He went out there, he dug him up, moved him, put him in the police station foundation. Sam's buried under the police station. It's a great twist ending, and really pretty good. All right, long story short, film was good, fun. I love the twist. I enjoyed it. It's a dark ride. It is weird going through the moral turmoil of having you cheer for the people that are trying to get away with the crime. Because here, things like the torture and the tactics, the slapping, interrogations, and all that they're really out of, it's all far-fetched, especially when you got to the little kids. We're going to take this little girl's word on where they ate or whatever. So that's a big breakthrough in the case. It's like some little kid. They don't know what's going on. And I'm not saying it's not true there. I'm not trying to dismiss India's culture and the way things are, police corruption and all that, because I'm sure it is. I'm sure the smaller the village and the more remote it is, it'd be the same as it is here. You go to a small town or you get an arrogant old cop or you got somebody abusing power. Yeah, of course it happens. It's going to happen everywhere. But that was a very hard thing to connect to for me. There were times where I was really struggling with that. It would kind of have to be set in a different time maybe or something. But I thought the performances were great. I thought execution was fine. I enjoyed it. It's long. It's too long. There's pieces, and when I say that, I don't mean like these massive changes to the story. What I mean is like some of the montages and stuff and these sequences, especially in that first half of the movie, they could have been shortened. Like you get a little minute here, a little minute there, a little minute here, a little minute there. And actually probably would have set up a little bit better for the payoff later on, because then you would see like the whole clip later on instead of just these long-winded montages. Same thing, there's also that recap middle with Lady Boss thinking that she's getting them 2 or 3 times. They don't, and these witnesses are coming and going. Some of that stuff could have been trimmed down. We could have had a little bit less of some of that kind of stuff. But I'm not going to make that a big showstopper or anything like that. I can recommend this movie. Where is it on my Indian cinema list? It's kind of in the middle. It's not near the top. It's not a film I can tell you that I'm going to rewatch, but it's not a film I would be unwilling to rewatch. I would watch it again, but it's not something I'm like going to race out and see again. Just because that kind of drama thriller thing, it's like once you've seen it, you know the twist. It's like I don't enjoy it quite as much, but I can see why people would enjoy it. And I will say, I think people are probably kind of divided on maybe some of the performances and stuff. I thought all of it was fine. So anyway, listen, you guys know the drill. I'm Pops. I'm new at the Indian cinema thing, so I love your recommendations. I love you guys just giving me some suggestions and things that I should or shouldn't see. I'm trying to learn, yeah. So always new stuff coming. Appreciate your time. Maybe please consider sharing this out so we can get the word out on us Americans trying to understand and spread the word on some really good Indian cinema being out there. So thank you again for your time. My Pops.